Welcome to the Taste Test channel, and this week we'll be comparing some of the most popular takeaway and store-bought pizzas from around the world to discover what the differences are and just how much they differ in taste, not to mention the surprising variation in how good or bad they are for you. As always, just for fun, we'll be awarding our Taste Test channel Best in Class award to the winner. If you're new to the channel, just hit the subscribe button to ensure you don't miss out on any of our regular taste tests. So some quick facts about pizza itself. We all know it's a classic Italian food, but it might surprise you to learn that nearly 2,000 years ago, the ancient Greeks were eating flatbreads called plakehouse, topped with herbs, cheese, onion and garlic, while the Romans were doing the same with focaccia. The word pizza appeared in Italy over 1,000 years ago, and for a long time it was sweet, not savoury. It evolved to its modern form after the Spanish brought back tomatoes from the Americas, but its global popularity really began after World War II, when Allied troops tried them while stationed in Italy. Today, more than 5 billion pizzas are eaten worldwide every year. That's around 350 slices per second. To ensure a level playing field, we've chosen thin and crispy bases and the cheese and tomato version of each pizza, hailing from Naples' classic margherita, which dates from around 1800. So our lineup of popular pizzas from around the world this week is as follows. Our takeaway brands are the three global pizza giants, Domino's, Papa John's and Pizza Hut. And our store-bought pizzas are restaurant brand Pizza Express, frozen option Ristorante by Dr. Oetker, and finally a grocery store own brand option from Marks & Spencer's. Price-wise, these cover quite a range, although the cost to get hold of them may of course differ depending on where you're based. We've tried to keep the sizes similar as possible, and you can see the price that I paid for each of them is shown below. As you can see, takeaway pizzas are a lot pricier than grocery store ones, with Papa John's being the dearest, followed by Domino's and Pizza Hut, all of which are 2 to 3 times the cost of the rest and 6 times the cost of Dr. Oetker. Nutritional wise, we all know pizza isn't the healthiest of foods, but there's astonishingly huge differences depending on which you choose. So here are the 4 key groups we always stick to on the Taste Test channel, which are energy, fat, sugar and salt. The chart below lists the pizzas from top to bottom in energy content per 100 grams. By the way, finding nutritional information for the takeaway pizzas was a minefield of hidden and conflicting figures, but based on all the stats available, here's how these particular ones pan out. No pun intended. As you can see, Domino's has the most energy per 100 grams, 25% more in fact than its closest rival, and M&S has the least. As for fat content, Domino's again has the highest percentage, followed by Dr. Oetker, and Pizza Express has the least. A quick look at saturated fat, that's the worst kind, reveals that Domino's has almost twice as much as the others. Sugar is also surprisingly high, with Domino's having 2 to 3 times more than most. Finally, we looked at salt or sodium, and once again Domino's maxes out with almost twice as much per 100 gram as Pizza Express, which has the least, making Domino's the least healthy pizza gram for gram on every indice. Also, because most people will eat a whole or half pizza, not a weighed out portion, this is where the differences can really ramp up. So stay tuned for some eye-watering stats later on, which may just make you change your choice forever. But how does all this affect the taste? Well, that's why we're here. So we'll start with the biggest selling pizza company in the world, Domino's, which can be found in 83 countries. They began in 1960 in Michigan when 2 brothers, Tom and James Monahan, bought a pizza restaurant called Dominick's. They planned to split their working hours, but James wanted to keep his job as a postman, so a year later he traded his share of the business to Tom in exchange for a Volkswagen Beetle. By 1965, Tom had 3 locations and rebranded to Domino's, with the 3 dots in the logo representing the 3 stores. The plan was to add a dot per store, but with fast expansion that proved impractical. Just as well as they now have over 17,000 stores. That's a lot of dots in a logo. By the way, in 1998, Tom sold his shares in the company for around $1 billion. Meanwhile, I'm unable to confirm whether James's Volkswagen Beetle is still running. So this is Domino's cheese and tomato pizza in a medium size with a thin and crispy base. And what we're going to do is open all the pizzas first so we can compare them visually side by side, and then we'll move on to the tasting. So we'll open up the box. So I have to say, this looks pretty gross, flat, oily and uninspiring, completely burnt on one side, and I'm smelling nothing but grease and oil. But it might prove different in the tasting, so we'll have to see. Next, another pizza giant, Papa John's, which also has a car-related story in its own history. They were founded in 1984 when Papa, John Schnatter, sold his 1971 Camaro Z28 to pay for used equipment to sell pizzas from the back of his father's tavern in Indiana. The pizzas and their legendary dipping sauce proved so popular that within 10 years they had 500 stores, and today they have over 5,000 around the world. In 2009, Papa bought the Camaro back after offering a $250,000 reward. They're now the third largest pizza chain in the world. And this is Papa John's medium-sized cheese and tomato on a thin crust. So we'll take a look inside. So it looks better quality than Domino's with more texture. The aroma, however, is again mostly oil. Maybe the slightest hint of cheese, but mostly grease. But we'll see what it tastes like after we've opened the others. Next, we have our frozen option, Ristorante, and this is actually the best-selling ready-made brand in Italy. Ristorante is made by Dr. Oetker, a German multinational, and here I discovered an unexpected and much more ominous history to what is still a family-owned brand. The company was founded by German inventor August Oetker in 1891, who created ready-to-use baking powder, but it's with his grandson Rudolf August Oetker that the story darkens. During World War II, Rudolf August was an active member of the Waffen-SS of the Third Reich, who were responsible for some of the worst atrocities of the war. The company remained under his leadership until 1981, achieving huge growth. Today, the Oetker Group has over 300 companies, including Chicago Town Cameo and Elio's Pizza, Raderberger Breweries, baking brands Ulsa, Wilton and Supercook, and hotels and finance firms. Their website references their rich heritage, and they still have a bronze bust of Nazi Party member Richard Kazalowski at company headquarters. So make your own mind up as to how you feel about that one. So this is their pizza mozzarella on a thin crispy base with Edam cheese, cherry tomatoes and basil. As you can see, it's frozen, so let's heat it up as per guidelines. So it's a bit limp and anemic looking, but there's plenty of mozzarella and tomatoes and pools of basil puree. There's a nice aroma on this one, not very cheesy, but fresh tomatoes and herbs. So we'll see how it compares in the tasting section. Next, store-bought restaurant brand Pizza Express. This started as an eatery in the UK in 1965. Peter Boisoy, who'd lived and worked in Rome, wanted to bring authentic Italian pizza to London, so he began opening stylishly designed pizza restaurants hosting regular jazz nights. In 1998, they started selling chilled versions of their pizzas in UK supermarkets, and they now sell over 30 million per year. Their restaurants also number over 400 in the UK, plus 100 around the world, under the names of Marzano, Milano and Zed. This is their margherita on their classic thin base with mozzarella and passata. So let's heat it up. Again, a bit lackluster, but lots of cheese and a puffy, crispy looking base. A minimal scraping of sauce, and the aroma is very cheesy, no tomatoes or herbs, but on the plus side, no oil either. Next, the world's second biggest selling pizza brand, Pizza Hut. The company started in Wichita, Kansas in 1958, again by two brothers, students Dan and Frank Carney, who borrowed $600 from their mum to start a restaurant. 6 months later, they opened another, and within a year they had 6. Thanks to mum, as of 2020, they're now the world's largest pizza chain by number of locations, with over 17,600 restaurants. This is their medium-sized margherita on a classic base. That's the thinnest I could get hold of, which is a thin base with a thick crust. So we'll open the box. So this looks almost identical to Papa John's, more textured than Domino's, but with a puffy outer crust. They've added a garlic dust topping, despite me ordering a plain one, so the smell is herby and garlicky, much like the aroma from their restaurants. I have to say it looks insanely oily though. Lots of pools of grease on the surface. You could literally wring the oil out of it. Finally, we wanted to add a supermarket own brand pizza into the mix, so we chose Marks & Spencer, aka Marks & Sparks or M&S. M&S started as long ago as 1884 as a penny bazaar market trader in the north of England by Polish Michael Marks and English cashier Thomas Spencer. The operation expanded and eventually became synonymous with quality British goods, mostly of their own brand. Today, M&S is a multinational retailer found in 40 countries and regarded as offering quality produce at affordable prices. This is their wood-fired pizza on a crisp sourdough base with Italian buffalo mozzarella and Santarella tomatoes. So let's heat it up. So this looks a lot more authentic and stone-baked, despite costing less than half the price of the takeaway ones. There's a lot more texture and toppings, and the aroma has by far the fullest smell yet, a rich cheese and tomato. So I'm looking forward to trying it shortly. So looking at them side by side, you can see the differences more clearly. There's more texture going on in the bases of some, or in the crusts of others, and more creativity on some of the toppings. But now that we have all our pizzas hot and ready to serve, let's move on to the tasting. So we're going to start with Domino's. So there's a burnt crispy edge with a strange textured base like an overcooked pita bread, but with airy flaky layers like a water biscuit, and not a very nice flavour. It's very salty, as if they've used salt for flavour instead of reducing the tomatoes. It's also exceptionally greasy. I'm not tasting cheese at all, just oil, and that has the aftertaste. Overall, I know millions of people eat these daily, and each to their own, but I'm afraid to say, based on this, I can't see what the appeal is. Next we'll try Papa John's. So there's a chewy, stretchy textured base with a far better flavour than Domino's, a bit doughy with a cracky crust as opposed to crisp. The cheese, however, is rubbery and flavourless with a concentrated tomato sauce beneath it. No herbs though, and again a very salty aftertaste. Overall, certainly better flavour and texture than Domino's, but oily and rubbery. I feel like I'm consuming a lot of calories with little flavour to justify it. Next we'll try Ristorante by Dr. Oetker. So the base is soft and doughy, which is typical of frozen pizza, but it gets crispier at the edges. The tomatoes taste surprisingly fresh and the basil adds aromatic herbiness. The cheese is subtle, but soft and melty rather than rubbery. Not too salty, and there's a warm, rich tomato sauce. Overall, simple, subtle flavours with more dimensions, but let down by the doughiness, which has the aftertaste. Next is Pizza Express. Okay, so the base has a lot more flavour and texture going on, the best so far. There's doughiness, but there's also a crisp and flavoursome outer crust with a slightly salted sourdough taste, although not too salty. Topping-wise, there's much less taste than Dr. Oetker. No tang or sweetness to the tomato, it's almost non-existent. It is much cheesier though, and the aftertaste is from the full flavoured crust. This could be a lovely pizza, but it needs more of the topping. There's not enough tomato, but if you add your own or choose a more exciting flavour, I suspect this could be really good. Next we'll try Pizza Hut. So we mentioned the pools of oil on this one, but it was literally so greasy that the box was soaked with oil beneath the pizza. It's like a heart attack in a box, which doesn't really tie in with their nutritional chart figures. And it's crazy because oil masks rather than enhances flavour. The texture, however, is better, doughy with a chewy, bready and flavoursome crust, but not crisp. There's a sweet tomato sauce coming through and a strong garlic aftertaste from the dust topping that sneaked its way on there. Overall, this has a richer taste than the other two takeaway options, and the salt wasn't as overpowering, but I had to soak the oil off to taste it properly, and it was still way too greasy. Finally, we'll try the grocery store own brand option from Marks & Spencer. So wow, what a difference. This is full of taste as soon as you bite it. The base has an airy and bubbly sourdough texture, almost like a crumpet, and a full, authentic stone-baked flavour, which is salty but not overly so. It's also the first one where the cheese is properly stringy. Lots of tang from the generous topping and a rich, cheesy tomato aftertaste with a sun-dried herby flavour from the cherry tomatoes. Really good. So that covers how they all differ in taste, and now that we've tasted them all, as always, just for fun, we award our Taste Test Channel winners and Best in Class award. But first, a few quick and surprising stats worth bearing in mind if you're a takeaway fan. Now, McDonald's have often had a bad rap of criticism for selling high-energy junk food. Somewhat unfairly, I think, considering they sell salads, wraps, fish and vegan, they use free-range eggs, organic milk, and their welfare standards are way above many others. For some reason, however, takeaway pizza chains seem to have slipped through the net entirely. Possibly because they claim a portion should be just 3 slices of pizza, but let's face it, most people eat a whole one or at least a half. So let's just take a second to compare then a large Big Mac meal with large fries and Diet Coke versus a Domino's medium-sized stuffed crust pepperoni passion pizza with no sides at all. So these are the calories or kilojoules you'd consume, and this is the fat. And as for salt, this is the maximum daily recommended salt or sodium intake for adults in the US or UK. It's about 1 gram more than the WHO worldwide guidelines. This is how much you'd consume from the McDonald's meal, and this is how much you'd ingest from the Domino's one. Nearly 3 times as much as McDonald's, and more importantly, 50% more than the maximum recommended daily allowance, and that's with no sides. So food for thought perhaps. So back to our pizzas, and the results seem to fall very much in favour of the store-bought rather than the takeaway versions, and that applies to cost, nutrition and taste. So if you are someone who eats takeaway pizzas a lot, why not try a good quality store-bought one next time and see what you think. But our top 3 winners this week, based on taste alone rather than ethics or nutrition, are as follows. Winning 3rd place, Ristorante by Dr. Oetker, let down somewhat by its doughy texture, but otherwise a simple but tasty pizza with good flavours. Winning 2nd place, Pizza Express. This had the best flavour crust of the lot and was nice and cheesy, just more of the topping needed and it would be excellent. Also, on a side note, this whole pizza only weighs 50 grams less than the Dominoes one, but had less than half the fat and sugar, 40% less calories and 60% less salt. But in 1st place this week, the Taste Test Channel Best in Class award goes to Marks & Spencer's wood-fired pizza with mozzarella and tomatoes. Standing out head and shoulders above the rest, this was the most authentic by far, with a lovely sourdough taste and texture and bursting full of flavour. So well done to Marks & Spencer. And as always, taste is subjective and this is purely my point of view, but I hope it's provided some useful insights. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and if you have, it would be great if you'd subscribe and do click the notification bell to ensure you don't miss out on any of our regular taste tests. And a big thank you from me to everyone who supports our new and growing channel. Every single person who gives a thumbs up, shares a video or subscribes really does make a difference. We're not sponsored, so to the handful of people who support us via Patreon, we are super honoured and super grateful. Meanwhile, thanks for watching and ciao!